Good afternoon, everyone from Luxembourg and abroad. Welcome on this Monday of June 8th to our 16th 10-year, 10-minute live interview with LPA. We couldn't close our edition, which will finish at the end of the month, without interviewing one of our godfathers in the person of Guy Harless, one of the key co-founders of Arendt. Hi, Guy. Welcome.
Good afternoon, Raja. How are you?
Yeah, it's great. I mean, we honestly didn't think we could host you on such a series, given your schedule and your role, but it so happens that after 35 years at the helm of Arendt and Medernach, you retired from your position as chairman on the 31st of March. Congratulations. And on the back of that, you are here with us today. For those who don't know you, at least from outside Luxembourg, because in Luxembourg, everyone does know you, you did found this prominent law firm, which is #1 in Luxembourg with over 850 employees today, 35 years ago with one other co-founder before being joined by more partners. Very important is you started in a finance and legal position at Arbed, which was the predecessor of Arcelor today, which is maybe something not everyone knows. And when I said that you're our godfather, Arendt was obviously one of the founding companies of one of the 20 founding members of LPA. And thanks to you, Guy, I know that we started to exist back in 2009 and 10. So thank you for that. And since you did miss our 10th anniversary party, we make sure to celebrate with you very soon. And I think today is the start of making up for that. So Guy, thank you for joining us. We want to ask you especially about your role as an entrepreneur in finance in Luxembourg, how it was then and how it is now. And your view is very important in that respect. I don't know if I should have added something in terms of your introduction.
You did it all. I'm flashing red.
Well, I'm sure we didn't say everything, but this is a good intro, and we still have the Q&A, which I remind our viewers who joined us, please do use the box at the bottom of your screen to pose questions for Guy. Guy, 3 questions each 3 minutes before the Q&A. So 35 years, moving from Arbed to founding Arendt. You must have learned so many lessons. What are the key ones that you remember? And if you had to start all over again today, would you do it again?
Okay, thank you. Well, I think one of the key lessons learned in my whole career was that definitely for a kind of company and for a kind of activity, a partnership is superior to cooperation. You know that ArcelorMittal is really a big corporation with CEO and with all the hierarchy. Mm-hmm. When you come to a partnership, you see that the world is completely different. And what I learned is that when you want to go ahead and when you proceed, you have to convince your partners to go ahead along with you. And sometimes you have very strong convictions. You think that something needs to be done and you should do it. And the CEO would do it. But then again, I have also realized that whenever I had a good idea, which I believe to be a good idea, and my partners were against it and I had to fight to get it through, maybe at the end, the idea was not so good as it appeared initially. So dealing with a partnership really makes you a little bit more modest, and you have to try and test your ideas with all your partners because all of them are equals and you really have to convince them in order to go ahead. So I think that the modesty you learn in a partnership is definitely one very important lesson. And I think that is something which could, in some corporations, be introduced as well. Yes, and then other ideas are that you need to be at the right place at the right time as well. And yes, we were very successful for Luxembourg standards, and I would say even for European standards. But it was also possible because we were here in Luxembourg, and this has been a great period of time for Luxembourg. The last 30, 40 years, we had tremendous growth. And had I been born, I do not know, somewhere in a different country, in the province somewhere, maybe we could not have had the same success.
Yeah, I recognize you. You're always very modest.
No, not too much. I will stop modesty now. And I will tell you that even so, we were on the right place at the right time. I think we were quite good as well in what we did. And I think that one of the things we did quite well was really to think out of the box. And I think that's crucial. We were probably one of the first firms in Luxembourg really to specialize. Claude Kramer set up the investment fund business within the firm. We told him, you do that and you do nothing else. We were the first firm in Luxembourg to hire a tax partner. We brought in different people, different competencies when we thought that we would need it. We moved away from pure law into other activities like regulatory when we thought it was the right time to do it. So I think that it's not only to be at the right time, right place. It's not only to be good, but really you have to think outside of the box and to improve and to go with new ideas. It's always like who moved my cheese, and you have always to be aware where you're going and what you would like to do.
No, I think these are great lessons for anyone starting a business or growing it. And this means that you think you managed to preserve the spirit with 800 people on board as well. I don't know how many partners you have, but...
Yeah, we have 45 partners by now, but obviously keeping the spirit is important. Even so, and it's true that you change over time. And while we took all decisions on the staircase on Saturday afternoons, that's no longer the way you do it. So it's a different culture nowadays. But let's say the spirit is still being there. Would we be able to replicate it today? That's a different story, I think, and I will come back to it a bit later. The world has changed tremendously, and it has become much more complex. What we did, you probably could not replicate it identical as we did it, but let's say never. And I think that some really young entrepreneurial lawyers or other entrepreneurs will be able to be very successful in this business place.
Oh, wonderful. Yes, we should come back to it. Just to specify, when you said for Luxembourg standards and maybe even Europe, you are in the top 20 law firms in Europe. Right?
That is correct. Yes, yeah. Absolutely.
But so speaking of 35 years, again, it's a long period. You've been through different cycles, through many crises, including the current one. And you said the world is changing. How is that impacting the entrepreneurial spirit of Luxembourg? And especially on the back, because we are talking about private equity here, and it's an area you're very well versed into as a GP, as an LP as well. If you look at all the new AIFMs, the new service providers entering the scene, not only tax and legal advisors, how is the current crisis impacting this way of doing business in Luxembourg, do you think?
Well, this is a different crisis from what we had before. When I started my career, we had the first oil shock, and we couldn't drive our cars on Sundays, and it was really very profound, and it affected a lot of people. But still, it was a crisis which was linked to one factor, the increase of price of energy, and it was linked mostly to steel and the steel environment here in Luxembourg. So it was local to some extent. Well, oil shock was global, but let's say steel, that was local. And it was really in respect of one specific branch of the activity. And the same has been true for the other crises we had since then. If you take the financial crisis, well, that was with the banks, but the real economy was less hurt. What is different with this one is that really it's about health, and it's affecting the global economy as such. So this one is really affecting the lifestyle of people. And the more it will last, I do believe that the way of living of people nevertheless will change and will be adapted to some extent. So it's much more fundamental. And I believe that there will be activities which will never again be the same. I think traveling will never be the same, or not in the near future again. Going on vacation will not be the same. All those, hospitality will not be the same. So those things will change. But we will probably be more used to Zoom. We will be more used to homework and things like that. So it will be a different way of living going forward. So it's much more profound. And I think it will affect globalization. If you take it that 100% of our medication to some extent comes out of China, and that you see that we had problems getting them across the borders at some stage here during the crisis, I believe that this will make politicians and industrialists think differently about globalization.
Okay, so, but I hope it doesn't impact the entrepreneurial spirit in Luxembourg. Maybe it will change it, but you're not saying it'll be less.
Oh, no, I'm still convinced by globalization, but we should maybe perhaps take a more prudent approach. I think that globalization really result in in lot of wealth
Imbalances,
in this world.
Mm-hmm. So
Absolutely.
I have one more questions before the Q&A, and I see we have a couple already. It's a bit of a provocative question to ask a lawyer, but you're now a free man as well. So I want to ask you how optimistic you are about the regulatory changes that are going to affect our sector, PE, as an investor, and why is it going to be better or worse, and or why not, if you think it's not going to change?
If I may take it a little bit broader and take it with Goethe, ach, zwei Seelen wohnen in meiner Brust. I must say, I've never been a friend of regulation. And if you take the world as it was 50 years ago, there were basically 500 million people at a maximum doing business with one another. This was North America and this was Western Union. All in China, just Mao Zedong had just died, and the Soviet Union was still in existence. So basically, the people doing business with one another were very few. Yeah. And they knew everybody knew everybody in this world. And we had good laws, and we had very few regulation. Today's world is completely different. The world is now 7.5 billion people competing with one another, with different cultures, different political backgrounds, and coming from very different origins. So this is a completely different marketplace. And if we didn't need really regulation as much as we did in the past, I think that we need it more as you have more people who are in the business. This does not mean that I'm really in favor of regulation. And I even believe that it has gone too far. We have too much regulation, which nowadays comes from unelected bodies on an international level, which comes from supervisory authorities. The parliaments, the courts are quite out of it. And what I regret, to some extent, as its rule of law and separation of powers have been forgotten a little bit about it. You have too much power within the supervisory authorities, really, who are creating the rules, implementing them, and can sanction. And sure. You may have recourse against those decisions, but your professional reputation will be ruined by the time somebody will rule in your favor. And maybe what you wanted to do by then will be gone. The opportunities will no longer be there. So yes, I think we do need regulation, but I think that we need regulation which is better controlled by the authorities and by the courts.
So next time we do a debate between you and Claude Marx, who was our guest last month.
I would love it.
Okay, I got your word on this one. So actually, one of the first Q&As we received has to do with regulation. And we have a prominent investor who you know from Luxembourg who's asking you if you think that these regulatory powers will further consolidate and move to a European level. He's thinking in particular of ESMA. And in that case, what would be the implications for Luxembourg? And the investor says hi to you, by the way.
Thank you. No, there again, I have really, I must say, two sides. I'm a European federalist, so I really believe in the European Union, and I think that the European Union should definitely proceed. But I'm also aware that moving powers to the authorities at the European Union level will only be possible if we can have a high degree of confidence in the independence of those bodies. Mm-hmm. And if we can be sure that they are not implementing rules, judging and sanctioning on the basis of their national preferences. And there, I sometimes do have some doubts. It's not that it would be done on, let's say, on a voluntary basis to hurt smaller states, but obviously they have less of a say. And in that respect, I think that it would be bad for Luxembourg.
But will it happen? Will it happen that Europe gains more ground to regulate Europe?
I believe it will happen, yes.
So it's bad for Luxembourg, and maybe we can do something about it by not weighing in with our size, but in terms of importance in our industry.
I already quoted the book, Who Moved My Cheese? And I believe the cheese will be moved, but we'll have to find new cheese and to be better, to really have all the people with the knowledge here in Luxembourg, so that we have to be a knowledge-based society, and we have to have the best people here.
Okay, word very, very noted. We have a a former bank CEO who you know also very well, but on this platform we don't give names, who's asking you, what would you recommend the Luxembourgish government to do to consolidate economic growth going forward in our country?
Personally, I'm still very adept by everything which is linked to finance and to banking. And I really believe that the Luxembourg government should still concentrate on those fields, be quite active in the promotion of those activities, be sure, as I said earlier too, that we get the best people here in Luxembourg who are working in that field, going into fintech, and really to be open to new ideas which may come up. And then again, and nothing against Claude Marx, I think that they are doing a great job, but I think that the government and all the authorities really need also to have a much more concerted effort to develop the Luxembourg Financial Center.
I think we should create a task force with you, Guy, now that you're a free man.
I'm not sure they would admit me to that circle.
We try. As a godfather of LPA, you more than deserve it. But so a personal question actually coming through for you. So you're not the chair anymore of ARENT since 2.5 months. How are you going to invest your time and experience and expertise in this? You have so many assets. What are you going to do with it? Or have you started something else?
Well, the advantage of a partnership is that you have your whole life have been one among 45. So I will continue to be one of 45, and I'm really looking forward to working together with my partners and to work on files. It will be different kind of work, but I'm really looking forward to it. Continuing the partnership, and then you know that I have quite some hobbies. Well, basically one of them being investing, which you know about. Yes. And then obviously I'm growing a lot of apples in my orchards.
Oh, wow. Can we visit it? Where is it?
Yeah, more than welcome, on the Luxembourg Moselle.
So that's how we should celebrate the 10th anniversary.
The best apple juice you can find in the country. It's the finest.
Okay, we will organize a visit and maybe we can even do a harvest.
Yeah.
But Guy, questions keep coming. Are you okay to spend a couple more minutes, please?
Please go ahead.
So I think your regulatory expertise is very appreciated. Basically, you know, the OECD, the EU driven regulations are reaching us more and more strongly. And the question is whether we are indeed fully embracing this wave that's coming to us. And if there's anything we can do to mitigate the impact. I mean, it's not really a question, I'm just reading at the same time. So are we going to become the most regulated financial center in Europe is the question.
I don't think we will become the most regulated center in Europe, but I'm afraid that the European Union will become the most regulated region in the world. And it's correct that a lot of regulation has come from the US, but if it takes the world, the US is not implementing as much regulation as we do. The whole of Asia, Africa, South America have much fewer rules than we do. So what I'm afraid is in Europe is that within the framework of globalization, we think that everybody is doing exactly the same thing we are doing. And I think that's where Europe needs to be prudent. And regulation, yes, we need it. I think it's absolutely great to have a regulation and laws and regulation on which people can rely. But we shall be careful not to create too much of a bureaucracy out of it.
Okay, Guy, wonderful. So maybe a closing question as a godfather, and because we're celebrating our 10th anniversary, what do you wish for private equity in Luxembourg and for the LPA to become really, you know, the prominent hub in Europe and maybe even the world? What would be your wish for us? My
wish would definitely for private equity to grow in Luxembourg as it has done over the years, and to have more of the investment advisors located here in Luxembourg as well. We have very fine people here. We have fantastic competencies. Luxembourg is a great location. Just convince more and more people to come in and to join us. So we'll interview you more often for that. I think this has been great. Enjoy all the new activities beside the ARENT files, and look forward to visiting your orchard in the next few months. Yeah. Then. More than welcome. Come. October will be great to help. Oh, wonderful. Thank you, Guy, for this. And thank you, Raja. Very enriching. Take care. Thank you. Take care. Bye-bye.